the spiritual lingo for it is the dark night of the soul. When everything that you were taught to give you certainty, security, clarity, when all of that has just been turned down on its head, you're in this dark hole going, who am I? What am I supposed to do? And this is how you know how unhealthy, can you even use the word toxic, the institution that you were in was, is how thick and heavy that dark night of the soul is.
Mm, mm,
And institutions that are less um, rigid, that don't require therapy after leaving.
mm.
But most LDS people who were very much active, believing members, I'm just going to be bold enough to say they need therapy. Welcome to Unbinding. We're Josh and Wendy, two fellow travelers on this journey of waking up out of our religious paradigm. We're navigating religious trauma and healing our spiritual wounds. So if you're not yet feeling free, well, come join us in learning how to just be.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Unbinding. Wendy and I were chatting before. We love to bring forward things that are alive in us and like present in our lives. And so we were chatting, sharing a little bit of our experiences. And so I wanted to start out. And I think this is what we love is the rawness and the vulnerability of sharing what's present on this journey, that it is so layered that it can be like I've been out 6 years now, and these things are just like I'm just discovering them right now. And so it's not a time thing, like the phrase time heals all wounds. It's like, no, like time
No, it doesn't.
passes. So the what we wanted to talk about is the challenges of uncovering. It's like uncovering and discovering harm, and then being able to find places to speak to it. And so for me, my parents are very, very, very Mormon still, and my siblings, sprinkled, um, I guess, depths of belief in each of my siblings, but my family is planning a family reunion this summer. And I've been really tuning into how much some of the patterns that I've done at within the family system was to be like the peacemaker, the good boy, really just set aside my needs for the good of the family, just get along. And I think there's so much value in doing that. And that can be from such a wounded place too. And so I've discovered that that was my role, was to just not rock the boat and to make sure everyone was okay. And I think, yeah, like I think there's something so beautiful about being able to do that. And so it's not bad mouthing that or saying that that's a problem. And at the same time, I can feel my insides right now. There's like twisting, and it's like the parts of me that have to stay quiet and to be abandoned. Like I just have to set them aside so that I can show up for them. And so I have this tug of war going on inside of me, this wrestle, because I love them, and I want it to be um connecting. Like I want our family to be connected and full of love. And so, and I can also feel that I've needed to betray myself my whole life in order to make that happen for them. And so I want to speak. I want to be able to tell them where I'm at. And I want them to like they don't need to understand, or they don't need to validate it. it just feels like I just need to tell them so they know. And it's like I'm uncovering different layers of harm that live inside of me as trauma, and I couldn't see them until now. So it makes sense if they can't see them because I couldn't either. And then wanting to voice it. And so then it's showing up with my desire to share on Facebook of the layers and the nuances of spiritual abuse that you don't know is spiritual abuse until it's time. And there's like a readiness inside of me where it's like, okay, I think I'm ready to look at that. I didn't know it was in my body. I didn't know it was in my nervous system. I didn't know it was in my psyche. And then, okay, show it to me. And then I have to navigate it. Now the pain is coming up. And so I think that I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, I know you have your own experience and I know working with clients but just the challenge and the difficulty to be able to find these things inside of them and then not know what to do it with it. Like, because I don't want to create conflict. I don't want to cause more harm inside the family. And there's something inside of me that just wants to come out and to be authentic to myself.
Yeah, I love all that. I think so many of us feel that, and you've articulated it so well. It's hard to explain kind of what's going on inside because spiritual abuse is so invisible, isn't it? It's just like it's happening, and I feel nasty and gross and sad, and that hurt, but I don't know why. I don't know why I'm feeling all of that, and I think that past generations have really normalized uh, subtle abuse, not just subtle abuse, but actually obvious abuse too. And we're living in this generation where, well, the boomer generation's looking at the younger generation going, you guys are so fragile. And maybe there is some validity to that, but I'm also starting to realize that we've normalized abuse.
Mm.
We didn't understand the emotional toll that we were putting on people by not understanding our emotional body and our lacking in emotional awareness as human beings. Like my parents had no training on the emotional aspect of being human. I didn't have any training on the emotional aspect of being human until I went into the healing arts, into rapid eye technology, and I started to research emotions. And even the books were very scarce. Now there's books everywhere on, how to deal with our emotions and what's your attachment style and what's your love language and what to do if you were raised by emotionally immature parents. And so all of this is still, it's new to our generation. And you and I are like born in that, are we Gen X? I forget
Mm-hmm.
what we are. We're in that bridging space between parents are probably never going to understand that and who are never going to onboard emotional intelligence. They're just going to be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then our children who are in a whole different realm where they're being taught their emotions and they're trying to navigate their emotions, and emotions matter. And so like we're the bridging generation where if we don't get it, um, our children will and will be the deniers,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I remember when I first started posting things on Facebook and being bold, and I didn't know that they were so bold as they were just super honest. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sharing my experience, and most of my followers were members of the church. And so I was really putting myself out there, almost like to the vultures, if you will. um, and they started circling around, and I was getting hit with, "How dare you hurt? How dare you talk about my religion that way?" And that wasn't my experience. And you've taken it wrong, and you haven't even have a testimony. You never had a testimony, and you must want to sin. And I was getting all of the various common hits that we all experience. and learning how to not just dodge it, but actually just stand in front of it and let it pass by me and roll over me. And it's taken quite it's been a journey because even just 2 weeks ago, I was, reminded that she left the church for the occult and she's started to dabble into witchcraft and divorced her husband. And you should not listen to anything that she says because that's where she's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at that and I was like, that's hilarious. I literally didn't have any shame come over me about that. I didn't feel like I needed to defend it. I just, there literally was kind of an internal giggle. And I knew that I had healed a lot of that. And it wasn't anger at the person who said it to me. It was just a remembrance of an earlier time in my own life where I probably would have been the one saying that to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was more of a, I see you, I get you. It's okay that you think that way, but I know who I am. And so what you're saying is your own shame and your own fear. You're projecting that onto me and warning other people about it because that's something inside of you. And it's taken me years to understand that. And to what you were saying about time, that time heals all wounds. That is not true. I mean, there are people in the Empowered Former LDS group that I facilitate that have been out of the church for over 40 years. And there's still a bitterness and a woundedness and an ache inside because of the fracture that happened when they left. And it's really a skill set, but it's also being able to feel it in the body and being able to recollect moments where you, like you were mentioning, where you gave up your autonomy, where you silenced your voice, um, and being able to go back to those moments and show up in a way that you know now, in a way that you defended yourself and what I would say and what I would feel. And let's go back to that moment where I self-abandoned. Let me comfort her. Let me give her the words that she understands now and let her look out and see the situation a little bit different and realize that people really aren't against you.
Mm-hmm.
They're just living in fear and they're deeply embedded into programming that is uh, they don't understand that outside world and they've been warned that it's dangerous and so that's just some of my thoughts where I it's been a challenge to regulate and how much do I want to share on my social platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And do I want to sound angry? A lot of people think that I'm just still angry because I talk about it. I'm like, I'm not angry. I'm having a moment of reflection. It's not like I walk around stomping around because church hurt my feelings. That's not what my life is about. But if that's all they see on social media, yeah, it is
Mm-hmm.
generating an image about myself that I might still be angry at church. And so we were talking early about some of the reasons that I do feel like I need to post publicly. And one of them in the beginning it was that I wanted to be heard and I knew I couldn't speak to my family about it. I knew that the audience that I used to have, my church friends and my church acquaintances and the church in general, I had a platform to speak about my feelings and my thoughts. And so long as they aligned with the gospel and that they were faith promoting. And now that community is gone, and I feel like there's very few people that I can talk to. And so I blasted on social media, part of me wanting to be understood um, by people that would maybe validate what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But then I soon realized, no, I want to say the things that I was never allowed to say. And I want to be able to express what's going on for me. Um, and when I do, my back feed, my private messages come in where people are saying, thank you so much for saying that thing. it makes me feel like I'm heard. It makes me feel like I'm understood. You're so brave. They'll tell me you're so brave to post that because they know that weird um, feeling of I have to have courage to speak my truth,
Mm-hmm.
which is only a witness of just how silenced we were in our past life and how we became so familiar with being able to swallow what it is we need to say. And so, my primary reason for doing it now is to say, I see you, what you're feeling, what you experienced is valid. And we get to say the things. And many times people will read what I post and they say, it gave me the courage to post on my line. And I'm like, oh, sometimes it's not the greatest idea to do that. It just all depends on why you have, say, a Facebook. Is it because you want to stay connected with family? I wouldn't be posting that stuff. Is it because you have a platform and you have a message or you're an activist? Then it's okay. What is your purpose for your particular platform? And really consider it. For me, it really is for my business and to validate the people that I serve. And my relationships with my family members are they're more private. They're more like we don't depend on social media platforms to stay connected in my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not there to censor myself so that my family feels more comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but I do that in family situations now.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely censor myself. Maybe that's something we could go deeper into. Like what are the concerns that come up for you as you think about going to your family reunion?
Yeah, it definitely feels like I would pretend. I'd have to pretend to be the old me. And
To
I,
make
I,
everyone comfortable.
yeah, yeah, so that they're okay. And I can feel, so I love um the idea of values. Like we all are made up of values, and that's what motivates and drives us. And inside the church, we're given values, and they're really beautiful values. And then, but it's often it's other, it's like outward facing, it's taking care of the one, everyone else serving, obedience. And there's no autonomy or being true to yourself. Well, maybe not. No, maybe not. I don't want to blanket statement it that it's not ever, but it seems like most often and frequently it's focused on the obedience and listening to the leadership, not rocking the boat. And so now it feels like this hierarchy of values that were given to me in childhood and within the religion. Now that I'm outside of it, I've had to reflect on those and see if they're still my values or were those values given to me. And then do I want to shift them around? And it feels like being kind was one of my top values. I just wanted to treat people really well. And that often meant staying quiet, that other people's experience was more important than mine. And so now it feels like this value of being honest and authentic to myself has gone to the top. And so there's this wrestle inside of me that, oh, that's selfish. Like doing that is selfish. Like just set aside my needs and so that for everyone else. And so these parts are like wanting to speak, wanting to be truthful and honest about what's happening in my inner world. And if that means there's anger and hurt, that gets to be present because that's what's alive in me. And so, but often, well, in my upbringing, we didn't know about emotions. There wasn't anybody that knew how to hold emotions. It was just chaos, just this. It was like to a nervous system, to a little kid, it was not a war zone, but it was just like tumultuous. Like there was a lot going on. And there was never, it didn't feel like there was a settling. There was nobody that would just be like, I see what you're feeling. Let's sit with that. You're safe to feel that. That makes sense that you're feeling that. And then have the nervous system move it through the stress response that the body knows how to do to get back into a regulated state. It was just like, keep it in, keep it in, keep it in, keep it in. Don't talk about that. And so now I want to talk about it, but their nervous systems have not been prepped. And this goes back to your dragonfly. Do you want to bring that up with the, if you go too fast or force somebody that isn't ready, that nymph can't, like the structure, the support, the body of the nymph can't hold the dragonfly. Do you remember saying all that? I was just
I do.
editing.
And it comes down to your own evolutionary process, right? Um, None of us are at that stage at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're never going to see like two dragonflies come out of the emerge out of the water and sit on a reed and um, you know, have that evolution happen synchronistically at the same time. It's like when you're ready. And if we map onto nature, um, we're very similar. You internally are asking different questions than your sibling or your parent, or and you might be a more inquisitive child. You might have had experiences that caused you to ask deeper questions. You might have the capacity to withstand the persecution and the disconnection and the detachment that's going to happen when you leave the church, where your siblings might not. Your parents, like that fallout is too much for them. And so you have to honor that you've been asking questions until you came to the periphery of the programming, until you were willing. And it takes courage to toggle in between, metaphorically, the oxygen and the water, and the oxygen and the water, and you're toggling in between this in the cover of night, because once you come out into the sun to have the full emergence of the transformation happen as a dragonfly, you risk being prey.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of risk when you've come fully out. There's a lot of risk. And the thing that I imagine, metaphorically, again, what we might want to do once we realize, oh my gosh, I'm a dragonfly, and these mosquitoes are tasty, and look at these things, they got wings. You want to look in the water and go, hey, family, you know what? We're dragonflies. We are dragonflies. You just keep asking the same questions I asked and you'll come out. And they're like, no, I want you to experience it now. But if you were to go into the water and pluck one of them out and put them on the reed and say, you're a dragonfly. This is what we do. It's fine. You're safe. I know they told you you're out in the oxygen is going to be dangerous, but it's not. And we're dragonflies. It's okay. But if they're not ready, they're not asking the same questions, if their constitution does not have the capacity to withstand um, the pressure, the rejection, the social annihilation, and that comes with your willingness to expand and to ask those deep questions. Um, for a dragonfly or a dragon nymph to be plucked out of the water, it's death for them. Because their lungs are not ready, the thorax is not fully formed. They're not ready for the experience yet. And so if we can look at it that way, rather than saying, oh my gosh, we're raised in a cult and they brainwashed me and they did this and that, and we take that victim position, then we're angry, and then we go into the water, we return back to the water for our family reunion. And you're like, okay, my wings are wet and heavy. I feel like I'm drowning because this is not where I belong anymore. My digestive system does not work well with the plankton and the fish eggs anymore, because I've been feasting on mosquitoes for a while, and it just doesn't go well with me. And I don't know how to talk to you anymore other than to speak the water talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to push and propel in the water anymore because I don't have the same arms that you do anymore. I have these wings that are meant to be in the sky. And so it's hard to create commonalities. And so for a period of time, being separated from that until you learn how to onboard new skill sets and learning how to communicate in the process, the emotions and the spiritual abuse that's happened to you while you were in. And then to recognize that they're still in the water, they're still growing at the pace they just haven't asked the same questions. They may never ask the same questions. They may never come out, but they're just fine in the water. They're eating their plankton, they're doing their dragon nymph things, and they're gonna be okay. They just don't understand what's happened to you. And so I hope that that was a long explanation.
Oh.
Probably more than what you asked for.
No, I think it was very relevant and that helped me a lot. And I just wanted to refer people to episode 1 where Wendy goes into the metaphor of the dragonfly if they want to hear more about that. And so I think you going into depth was really useful for people that hadn't seen that episode.
Yeah, I'm just a dragonfly nerd. I absolutely, once I studied about that, I went, that's my experience.
Yeah, that helps me a lot just to think about them, that they're in the water, they're happy. Like that's really big. And for me, where I'm uncovering wounds and they're like physical, like I feel them in my body now. It's uncomfortable, it's painful, it's like radiating out of my throat and my heart. And it's daily, like layer by layer. But I've learned the skill of letting my body move it through and metabolize it on its own terms. But if I didn't have any awareness of my body or sensations, which was my normal, it was just I I didn't know it was there until I suddenly had awareness and I was like, how is there is so much hurt inside of me. It's like, where did this hurt come from? And then it's natural as I've pinpointed and identified things and tactics, like unintentional. I want to talk about this um, of like well-meaning people that are harming unintentionally from like these beautiful humans with amazing hearts, but they're saying phrases that are creating more damage
Yeah.
unknowingly. It's like it's so hard to wrap your mind around because it's well, let's talk about this. So yesterday, a couple days ago, I did a post and I was talking about 2018. I started to look at the what was I was told was anti-Mormon lies, and I started to look into it. And that it's a long story, but 2019 was when I left. I resigned from the church. 2025 is when I'm unpacking all of this. So it's been 6 years. And I did a post about that and about, I mentioned one of the biggest things I've done is to stop giving a toxic organization power to determine my worth. And I realized that phrasing, I could have softened it. I could have shifted it and it felt so true that I wanted to I'm like practicing holding my truth and putting it into the world even when my body wants to be like, that's too much, stop it, you got to soften that. And I was like, no, hold it, like hold it. And it's like a nervous system thing of like, can I hold this discomfort inside of my body but that resonates as my truth even though I know it's going to impact people and I know people are going to get triggered. They're going to push back, and it feels like a practice. Like I'm developing this muscle of holding.
Yes.
And so, is there anything you want to share before I do want to talk about the comment that I got? But I want to give you a chance to add anything here.
Well, it will probably come up as you're talking about the comment, but I two of the things that come up with that invisible abuse that we don't know that we're participating in as members of the church. It comes up because we are taught to defend the church at all costs. And we're also it's deeply ingrained in us that I am the church. I belong to the church. Even the little kids, I belong to the church of Jesus Christ. So you're so deeply enmeshed and identified in the church, um, that when somebody speaks bad about the church, they take it personally as if you just spoke bad about them. And so it ignites their defenses, and they don't realize that when they go to defend it, that they're actually hurting the person who had a different experience in the church. And so I'm sure this will come up in your what happened, your interchange this week.
Yeah, so I want to speak to more about what you just said because I think that's so important. And I was using ChatGPT this morning to see if I could understand a little more deeply around systems.
Mm.
So if you think about, we have immune systems, nervous systems inside the body, and then we have family systems, we have religious systems, we have um, like cultures are systems,
Yeah.
nations are systems, races are kind of like little. It's just communities. Like I like to think of it as just humans that are unified in some way, and we
Yeah.
call it a system. And so
An organized structure,
yeah.
whether school or my work environment or my city or yes.
Yeah. And those can be just neutral, right? They can just be, we're just going to gather. Or it can be very positive, intending, and then they'll play out. And maybe there's like pockets of harm that unintended, generally. Like maybe the KKK is like a good example of a harmful system.
Intentionally harmful.
Yes. So there are those too. But if you think about like um, the church, that feels like an organization designed to with love at its core.
Mhm. Well, that's what they want to be perceived as too.
Yes. Yeah. And with Jesus, right? And Jesus.
Yeah, we're just here to connect with Jesus and
Yeah.
share Jesus, which is such a mask. It's like a facade.
Yeah.
Once you've lived in there, you're like, yeah, that's not all we're doing.
So if you think so, once you understand immune systems inside an organism, so I have mine, you have yours. And then if we have a ward and our immune systems are now going to defend the church. And especially as what you were describing, I love that we are the church, we belong to the church, like the songs. And then now our immune system and nervous system is going to work as a unit to protect the organism, which is the church.
Mhm.
And so if I'm posting something and their nervous system, this doesn't even need to be like a prefrontal cortex thing. It can be the amygdala stuff, which is way more ancient, more primitive, and below our awareness. And so they can perceive a threat in like maybe my whole post is loving, but one particular sentence is a
Like
threat. Now,
toxic institution, and they're like,
yeah, yeah. And now they either want to attack or
right.
defend. And as soon as this happens inside marriages too, that as soon as that trigger happens, now you're not no longer navigating the conflict with the thinking part of your brain. You're reacting and defending and attacking. And so this is all like science and neurology and nervous system stuff that we're dealing with that's primitive and ancient, but so few people are taught or have taken the time to learn about what's happening inside their nervous system as
Mhm.
they're reading posts. And so, and then think about how often we as a society now are scrolling, like infinite scrolling and reading other people's, and then we're just not paying attention to what happens in the body when I read this particular post. or this
Yes.
one or this one? Is this feeding? Am I now numb just from a particular word? And so this is the work that gets to start to take place for actual healing to take place. You need to understand your own nervous system, and you need to understand that your nervous system is designed to protect the organism, which is me. And then if I am part of the church, now it's trying to defend the church as well.
I love what you're saying. What's coming to my mind is that it actually is it's a portion of our human development. And we are in this day and age, the more that we understand about our emotions and our nervous system, that advanced humans,
Mm,
that means more complex
mm,
humans, more evolved humans are aware of their nervous system.
mm, mm-hmm.
It's not, you're not a lesser human because you aren't aware of it. You just haven't advanced yourself to be aware of it and to onboard it. It's like you're not less valuable because you don't know how to read, but you are limited in how you can function in the world. Right. And so this to me, what you're talking about is a huge invitation to get aware of your nervous system and to notice how it's operating in your everyday activities. In that space, you're just going to naturally be able to acclimate and respond to life.
Yeah. And so I love that because that's happening inside of me. So this morning as I was just kind of laying in bed, I was noticing what was happening inside my body. And I could tell that I could have a thought that could create fear inside of me.
Mm.
And then that fear now dictates my mood and my motivation. Like, what do I want to do today? If my body is full of fear, it impacts my day. And if I'm not aware that my thoughts created it, that can turn into my week, my month, my decades. And so if you're growing up in a system that promotes and feeds into shame and guilt and fear from a young age, your nervous system's now acclimated to that as normal. It doesn't know there's any difference. It doesn't have contrast to not shame. It's in the water now. And we're being raised in from a fearful, shameful place, and then it's labeled as love.
Yeah.
The words like, and then it's coming from the Relief Society or the nice lady down the street, and she's saying this fearful, judgmental words, but she says it with a smile and gives you a hug, and her you can feel her heart that she's so loving, but the words are wrapped in.
Yeah. It feels like you're being assaulted by a teddy bear.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why it's so tricky now. Fast forward to the comments that I received. I got a couple. It was really interesting. So I want to share. There's one guy that said that I never had a testimony, and he said a few other things. And then what was so beautiful and had me crying was that people came to my defense.
Mhm.
You were one of them, and I reached out to a couple of my friends who my friends, like I call them friends because they didn't attack this man. They just said, well, there were lots of things, but it was very invitational. It was like, you know, explore this, think about this. Or it's like you don't get to decide whether Josh had a testimony or not.
Yeah.
Like, why does he get to decide?
Why do you not see that that is so absolutely vicious? But it's so cruel when you lived your whole life bearing your testimony, living exactly as you've been taught to live, and then someone says you never had a testimony. Oh, I did.
Mm. So what was really beautiful about what my friends were defending was not my belief system, but they were defending that I had a truth that was my own,
Yeah.
and that was welcome, that got to be voiced.
Yeah. How many times in church those are the things, many times the members who are in, because they don't understand the complex process that happened for people to leave, they just parrot what the church tells them why people leave. And it feels like gaslighting, it feels dismissive, it really feels so hurtful to the actual process that happened to me, because I know for most people who leave, they go into a deep dive because we've been taught that we're risking losing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Our association with God, the possibility of our family being together in the next life, there's a lot to lose. And so we go into this deep study and this deep research and this spiritual entanglement that's just it feels violent and tumultuous and it just really difficult. And then for somebody to say, "Oh, you never had a testimony. Oh, you just wanted to go smoke cigarettes and have a beer. You wanted to have sex outside of marriage," and you're like, "Gosh, that was not it wasn't anywhere in why I left." Like that's so dismissive and painful and hurtful, and they don't mean to sound that way, but because of the lack of understanding. And then here's another situation that happens there is that they're discouraged from asking. They're discouraged from having the
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they do find themselves in conversation, they're conditioned to doubt what that person is saying or even be suspicious because that person has been deceived. And therefore, I have to only look for that if I feel like I'm being convinced by that person, it's the same deception, the same demon that they've been attached to. And so it's like, don't even ask them why they left. I don't really want to know the truth, and just in case you might have some validity to it. And so it's just this huge fracture between when you actually leave and you take off your holy underwear and you stop going to church, and when you have those first questions, and because they don't know this terrain right here, the things that they say are so painfully harmful.
I think what you shared, like I could feel how important it is to really bring, like hammer it home. Like because I was reflecting on moments where I was defending the church. It wasn't that long ago. I was him, and I was using those phrases, and there was no place for understanding. There was just it, like my mind was just locked down. And if you think about where that comes from, programming wise, from a place of fear, and then coming back to the nervous system, where any thoughts contrary to what you've been given, programmed as truth, is dangerous to the
Right.
nervous system. Yeah. And so now the nervous system is now working like you don't have access to curiosity or compassion or let me sit down and hear what he has to say, because the body goes numb or fight or flight. You're either attacking or you're running away, or the freeze takes place. And from that frozen place, there's it's almost like the ears go like plugged,
Yeah. Yes.
la la la, and it's not like personal. It's not like they're a dumbass or they just can't get it. It's like nervous system
Yeah.
wise,
Yeah.
their system has shut it down because the threat, the truth, like the opposing truth, is a threat.
Yeah. It reminds me as if you were a dragonfly and you're trying to speak to your family that's still underwater, and all you hear is through the water, and all we know is like You're lost out there. Whatever you're doing, it's bad. Come back into the water where it's safe. And it was all.
Yeah, that's so good. So I want to bring this to nervous system with men and with emotions too, because as you were sharing in in the church, you had spaces, whether it was like your visiting teachers or maybe in Relief Society, where you guys could share your emotions in a safe place when it was hard, kids or husband, you had spaces to talk where the nervous system didn't feel any threat, like there was a freedom to express. But men, generationally, societally, this isn't just a Mormon thing, but Mormon, like it's nuanced and problematic in unique ways inside the church for men,
Mhm.
because there's just no awareness of what's inside. Like that's been, and anything inside is a threat. And so for me to even look inside goes against my own nervous system now. And so I can't self reflect. I can't check in to see what I'm feeling, what is happening inside of my body. That even that inquiry has been for generations programmed and taught that anything inside is bad or weak, to lock it down. Don't know about that. And so much of my journey has been shifting that, learning that what's inside is like the most valuable thing I've ever found. It's not problems, it's not a threat. It's me. It's like the truth of me that I keep uncovering. And I was like, oh, I labeled that as bad. I labeled that as shame. I've been judging that part of me for 50 years. And then I shed the judgment and bring curiosity in. And I was like, oh, this is just a part of me that wanted more love or wanted to love or needed something. And it's generally needed some kind of nurturing, some kind of compassion, some kind of emotional intimacy that I had never got. Like my parents don't even know that's a thing due to the programming. And so it's not they're
Well,
bad parents. It's they were never shown or experienced it
they
themselves.
don't have the capacity. Well, I think I like, I didn't want it to go unnoticed or want to give more weight to this. The fact that for men it is layered culturally. You're not taught anywhere to share your emotions with each other. Um, Even in counseling, it's hard. But then when you layer it with the church too, it's like I'm not allowed to doubt, I'm not allowed to question. My role as a valiant man in the church is just to continue parroting what the brethren has taught us and to validate um, this doctrine, to show my obedience and complicity, and to just keep regurgitating the words and the system and the programming and the routine over and over and over again to prove that I'm valiant and a man of God. There is no space in there for you to look in and go, how am I feeling about this? Do I agree with this? Do is something hurt in here? Woundedness, that like all these things sound very fragile and very delicate and very high, ultra sensitive. Which brings me to this idea of this patriarchal masculine systems that are being imposed on us. There's no room for that tenderness and that gentility.
Mm.
And then we're in a church that's supposed to represent Jesus, who is supposed to be the most loving of us all. But when we show this ultra sensitivity or this talk about harm, or we talk about how to say things in the way that is loving and tender and kind and soft and gentle, that those things are seen as weak. But yet we're also supposed to incorporate that personality of Jesus. And it's so confusing and so counter. Uh, the best word is confusing. Like,
Mhm.
I'm standing up here being a man, declaring God and the prophets and what needs to happen. And nowhere in there is gentility and kindness unless it is masked or performed.
Mhm.
We perform gentility, we perform kindness and sensitivity, but it's not really felt because of the response that you got from one of those gentlemen that you've seen on the surface has been that kind, gentle person. When his response for you was just peppered with harm and a really painful response.
So I'll go into that, but I just wanted to really neat. I love bringing it back to the nervous system. And
Yes, I love that you do that, by the way.
if you think about confusion to a nervous system, like what the nervous system wants, what the brain wants is survival. It wants safety. And if you think about how debilitating and off-putting and imbalancing confusion is to a nervous system, it's the opposite of safety. And so anytime there's confusion, the nervous system brings the walls and it's like, okay, I'm on hyper alert. Do I need to get the hell out? Do I need to fight? Do I need to hunker down? Do I need to freeze? Do I need to shut down? And I so if you think about I love the layers. So the masculine, the patriarchy, the men that are needing to be strong and performing strong. And we this is baked into our culture here.
Mhm.
And then hyper, it's like magnified inside the church in such a unique way. But and then that performative, like so I've done a few different posts and I've gotten responses from men and they're pushing back, they're defending, and both of these are so I play pickleball a lot in my past life and both of these were friends. I consider them dear friends inside the pickleball space. And now I'm speaking up my truth and it's a threat to their systems. And then they're using like you said, the phrases that they've been given. And then there's no space to witness. And so I want to bring this forward. So if you think about like a disciplinary council, there's no place to witness the person. It's not seeking to understand, it's seeking to decide. It's give me the facts and we're going to make a decision on whether you're worthy. Can you stay in the church? Do you need repentance process? It's a decision. It's not tell me about the harm.
Mhm.
Like, let me sit with your heart. This is what my friend, she's like, she experienced this with her husband. And she's like, there was no place where they held his heart.
Mhm.
And when she said that, it was a voice recording. I paused it and I just started crying. I was like, they've never held my heart.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they
and
didn't
I wasn't
know.
taught to hold my own heart.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, my heart has never been held.
So what I've been doing on these Facebook posts is wanting them to witness me without they don't need to understand. Just hold my heart and say, there was fucking harm done. Can you tell me about the harm? Can I set aside my experience, my belief, my conditioning, and see that there's a human here that whose heart is like full of this hurt? And then can we seek to discover like where did that hurt come from? Can we trace it back? Because if I truly believe these men, if they would help me find the hurt and they would find the motherfuckers that were harming if it wasn't inside their belief system.
Exactly. Exactly. Or to find out that it's them.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't want to know that how much they're hurting you right now. So you could go as in intricately and as clearly as possible, explain it to them. It's still not going to hear it because, like what you said, the nervous system is either in rest and digest or it's in fight or flight. And only rest and digest can be curious.
Mm-hmm.
Only
Mm-hmm.
rest and digest can hold space. And so once they're in that fight or flight, got to defend the church, got to defend my beliefs, it's like the ears go off. And all I'm looking for is I'm scanning for the threat and I'm going to call you out on that. But I have no capacity to hold space for you in curiosity and in consideration and sensitivity.
Yeah, I'm learning from a woman who is nervous system trained. So I'm learning, and I'm like, I wish she grew up Mormon so she could bring her wisdom
Yeah.
into this, because she talks about the fight or flight, understanding neuroception, where every millisecond our nervous system is scanning for threats. And that's being programmed based on our lived experience. And so in primary, if we're learning about Jesus and all these beautiful things, that's why it's so tricky to unpeel,
Yeah.
because it is like, oh, I love that song. I love Give Said the Little Stream. It's such a beautiful, like, and it's like I have so much joy thinking about singing it as a Valiant A or whatever it
Yeah.
was.
3-year-old.
Yeah. And so it's so tricky because those songs have words have power. They can be spells, they program, and they can be for good. They like, I am worthy, I am worthy. Affirmations have so much power. And then if you're singing songs where I am worthy if I obey, over and over, but it's like little subtle phrases and you don't even know it's training your nervous system that I need something outside of me, a savior, to be okay. And if I leave the church now, what who am I? Where's my worth? Like, who's going to save me? And to a nervous system, that feels like death.
Hmm. Yep, I've had so many clients like in the tunnel. There's like this dark tunnel, and the spiritual lingo for it is the dark night of the soul. When everything that you were taught to give you certainty, security, clarity, when all of that has just been turned down on its head, you're in this dark hole going, who am I? What am I supposed to do? And this is how you know how unhealthy, can you even use the word toxic, the institution that you were in was, is how thick and heavy that dark night of the soul is.
Mm, mm,
And institutions that are less um, rigid, that don't require therapy after leaving.
mm,
But most LDS people who were very much active, believing members, I'm just going to be bold enough to say they need therapy.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
They need to understand what has been done to them and how they've been programmed and what else is possible. Um, and and so it's to me that just it's a reflection on the institution and what we were taught. And like you said, when you're in it, it feels so joyful and so safe. It feels so obvious and it feels so certain and so secure and so special. I feel special because I know these things and I'm a chosen one and God is talking to me and I've got the Holy Ghost and I'm surrounded by friends. Everywhere I go, I'm insulated with people who believe just like me. And it just feels like this fantasy. Or when it all gets flipped up on its head because you're doing some deep research, It literally is like you are becoming an entirely different person. Your values are being renegotiated, and you're the one that's determining the hierarchy of how that will land from your internal system rather than being superimposed on you by the church.
Mm.
And it gets messy and it's complex. And like I said, it's that gap between what I started questioning in that moment when I said, oh my gosh, this is not for me. This is not going to get me anywhere. That dark, messy place. Um, we're still evolving language to explain it, even in this very podcast that we're doing, because it is that messy.
Hmm.
So it'll be interesting. Somebody who's still deeply in the church listening to us communicate right now, and somebody who's left and done all the work, and somebody who's left and has not yet done the work. They're going to hear it all differently.
Yeah, it's really it just so that's why I've been so grateful for ChatGPT because it's able to it's taken like an objective. I'll put in my thoughts or I put in this guy's comment and I was like, can you just help me see the spiritual abuse? Because I don't know what it is. Like it
I
just
feel it.
feels, yeah, I can feel it. And it was like what is harmful or unhelpful even. Like we can it can be subtle, it can be there's a spectrum here of like overt versus covert.
Mhm.
And when it's just baked into the society and how it's always been for generations, it just feels like normal talk.
Yeah, it doesn't feel abusive.
No.
It doesn't. It feels like I'm defending Jesus. What
Yeah.
thing could there possibly be than for me standing up for the Lord and inviting this person back into the fold? It feels valiant. It feels good. It feels right. It feels like he's got to access a portion of courage for
Mm.
him to even confront
Hmm.
you.
Hmm. Yeah, he actually said that. He's like, I've read a few of your posts and I didn't say anything, but I can't not speak this time.
It's duty. Now
Yeah.
he's duty bound.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I can see like how honorable that is because he's defending what's true to him.
right.
So yeah, I don't know that we need to go into all of it, but there was like 8 different ways that it was spiritual abuse. And some of them I had never heard of, some of them I wouldn't have even known to call it that, and some of them as soon as it was named, I felt it deep inside of me that just how programmed we've been in the culture and how it like you said it feels valiant, it feels good, it feels like defending your honor and your truth. Like there's something so important to a human to do that.
As you're talking about this, I just had this idea. I remember when I was first introduced to feminism, and
Mm,
I know in the church that's very discouraged. My mom was in the ERA, and I remember when the prophet came down, shut all that
mm,
down. And so when I started, I read the book, The Dance of the Dissident Daughter by Sue Monk Kidd. And she was, raised religiously too in a different religion, and just understanding that moment where she realized that everything had been delivered to her in through the masculine voice, and that
mm,
the authorities in her life, none of them were women. And I thought to myself, oh, let's think of one more thing that I need to be pissed off about. Let's let me tell you how you need to be upset about things. They've never upsetted you before that, the women in the church are not allowed to wear pants yet. At this moment, they weren't. Um, that's it's like people were egging me on to get riled up about it and to get angry about it. And then when I read the book, I'm like, okay, now I am angry about it. And if I were to be able to explain what was going on with me, is that I had been trained to settle for my lower capacity as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And the rage that I was feeling was about being tricked or manipulated to play small
Mm.
and to limit myself. And that's where I started to get upset. And then I saw people raging about, there's raging feminists. And I'm like, that's not helpful. That's not where I want to be. I want to understand what we're explaining right here. How has this impacted my nervous system? How has this limited my own development and my own experience in the world? How am I putting blinders on to things that are really impacting the growth and evolution of the collective earth that I feel so connected to and responsible for? And and in that way, how can I help bridge gaps? How can I create language? How can I create connection, reconnect? And yeah, I'm upset about it first, but it's like, now what do we do about it?
Mm.
And I love the approach that you're bringing to your family reunion situation, um, that you mentioned. Like, maybe if I don't mean to like weave us back there, except for this effort that you want to develop a letter to let them know that maybe you won't, like, what would you say to them?
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of during my healing, there's been a lot of invitations to write letters and then not send them.
Yeah.
It's like a processing practice, right? And really useful to just get it out. But this time, I need to send it. They need to know. And so it feels like I'll be using ChatGPT to do it. So I can make it true to me and palatable to them. Like, not that I need to sugarcoat anything, but how can I phrase it so that my truth comes through the message loud and clear, like no confusion, like clarity, and that they get to know the real me, and then they get to make a choice. And that might, I'm okay. I'm at a place now where if there's like this disconnection, but I'm in my truth, I'm at a place where I'm okay with that, with their choice. And if it's like too much, too confusing, like they don't understand or they feel like they don't know how to act around me, that's probably true. Like we're at this strange place where they're in the water living their lives happy, and I left the water and I was like, the water makes me sick. I don't know what you want me to do. I can't breathe under there anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think what I observe is that your healing, if you can measure it, um, the metric you can use is how it's revealed is in your ability to now withstand the rejection,
Mm,
to now withstand the risk of abandonment,
mm,
and to now be able to observe without emotional attachment the unintentional abuse. That's how you're now measuring your healing process.
mm,
I've now transformed into this type of person who's not going to take it personal, who's not going to respond with another dagger, who's not going to try to defend himself, who's not going to go into my own fight or flight, where I can regulate my nervous system and stay in rest and digest so that I can be curious and so I can respond with love and so that I can observe the situation without my own myopic view of the whole thing. And that is a reflection of the inner work that you've done.
mm,
And I just want to reiterate here that it's not enough to wake up.
mm-hmm,
It's one thing to wake up, but when you wake up, you're going to be mad.
mm-hmm,
You're going to be angry. You're going to be confused. You're going to want to defend. You're going to want to be with people who are just as angry and defensive and upset as you are because it's so validating that we get to feel this way, that we have been abused in a system and we get to talk about it in a safe place. And yeah, but waking up is not enough. We have to grow up. We have to start to understand what the impact that it's made on our mind and how we make decisions. We have to learn about our nervous system. We have to learn about observing our emotions and how they can inform us. There's just so much more about opening up and expanding so that we can become a more higher order of human being. Is that's the opportunity that's being offered to us, but we stay with our wings on our back and the capacity to fly so fast, 40 miles an hour. But we stand on this ground, shaking our fist at our family in the water, going, damn you, church. Instead of going, dude, you got wings.
Mm.
Let's go. Let's go do the things. Let's go be dragonflies.
So, with all of that, we like to finish our episodes with healing in mind, with some practices, with something tangible that people can take from our discussion. So, what would you say to that?
Well, a lot of it has been the theme of this conversation is start to understand your nervous system. Witness what it feels like in your body to be dysregulated. Learn techniques. There's just 100 ways for you to calm your nervous system. Find the one that works for you. And we've talked about having a guest speaker, an expert in this field, come onto the podcast and talk about it. So when we get that published, go to that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there yet, but go to that one and start understanding how your nervous system operates, and then start focusing on the future that you want to create. That's when you know the healing is starting to happen. When what you're creating for your future is far more interesting than making the church wrong for what's happened to you. When you cross over that threshold, you can look back and you can look in the water and you can see the activity in the water and you can just say, remember when I dressed in that green apron and that weird veil and I went to those fancy buildings and I did some weird things and that was funny instead of I must seek justice. And it that that's going to make a big shift for you. So yeah, it's notice your nervous system, realize what it feels like to be healed, consider being healed so that you can observe people doing things that you don't agree with, things even that you know are harmful, and you can offer them freedom to have those experiences. You don't got to fix it. You don't need to make it wrong. You don't need to even make it bad. It just is. It's part of what people go through. They get raised in cults and they get out. They experience abusive situations and they get out. They're trained to be one thing and then they leave and get out. And it's part of our evolutionary process. And we have unfortunately we can get stuck in our own evolution and get onto one phase and never even get past it because we haven't learned this piece about the nervous system. We haven't learned this piece about letting it go and connecting inside with the body. So I hope those words are helpful.
Yeah, that's really good. I'll link to the woman that I've been learning from, her name's Sarah Baldwin.
Yeah,
She
good
has
stuff.
a
She's very
yeah,
thorough.
yeah, she's a great teacher too. It's really easy to understand. So I'll link to her. She has a YouTube channel with a podcast and it's called You Make Sense. And so I just love, there's so much compassion in that, just
Yeah,
understanding, where you're at and just diving into, like I took a 6-week course from her or something, and I was learning it like cognitively, and she was in like having us tune into different states. And I felt like I was just numb all the time.
Mm.
So it felt like I was just at this flat line in a way, but it was just this freeze response that I didn't know. Like I didn't really get too high, I didn't really get too low. And it was that stoic, masculine, be strong, performative, walled off version of a human. And
It's
to,
like organic Ritalin.
yes, it was. And then there's so much in the spiritual community that where they talk about high vibes only.
Oh, yeah.
And when the freeze started to thaw, there was rage here. And I was like, high vibes only. And I was like, hold on, I got to be honest about what's here.
Yeah.
And that rage has been so transformative to allow to be here and to
Hmm.
move. Like, I don't want to blow shit up, but it's a messenger. It's teaching me about all of the things that were harmful. And I've needed to give my body permission to access the hurt, the anger, the grief, like all of those things that were weak have been the medicine.
Yeah.
But if you don't have access to tears or to your voice, to anger, because you just want to be like a woman said, I'm going to take the high road on this one. I was like, maybe you don't need to. Maybe you just need to be really authentic. And maybe that is speaking from a place of shaky, like voice where there's so much rage inside of you. And that's truth coming out of the body.
Yeah, I do want to speak a little bit about that. That it's called toxic positivity, love and light. True spiritual growth comes from depth. And so I don't want to dismiss that you're angry. I don't want to dismiss that there's rage when you leave. It's not being able to process it. It's not knowing how to use it. It's it, you should be angry about what happened to you. You should have grief. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. You should be sad. You should have all of these feelings. And if you're not, it's a possibility you've been severed from your emotional body and you only become a more advanced human being again when you can onboard that, access it. It's there, it just might be dormant.
Yeah, that's the place where I'm at where I can, and I keep relabeling my anger to my fire
Mhm.
because my fire is thawing me from the inside out, and then that fire wants to speak. And that's when I'm posting, and it's from a place of the truth wants to be heard.
Mhm. And when we do that thing, and I call it you wake up and we do some growing up, we do some cleaning up, and we do some opening up so that we can do the final step, and that is show up. And that's what, to me, you're doing. You're showing up. You're on a public forum, speaking your truth. You've tamed your fire, but it's still lit. And you can try as you might to sugarcoat it and not offend. But the reality is, the more accurate your truth is, and the more piercing it is, and the more piercing a truth is, the more threatening it feels to those who are still living under an illusion.
Hey, thank you. This was very helpful for me. Thanks for sharing, your experience and having the dialogue. I think it's helped to normalize what I'm feeling too, which feels really important.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad that you brought this up because it is a theme that I work with in my practice a lot. And when we can sit and have a deeper conversation about it, I think that it will be beneficial for those that we're creating this podcast for.
Hmm.
We see you. You get to be angry, and there's also healing available.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for listening in. We hope there were takeaways that help you begin to unbind the deep programming that no longer serves you, and remember more of who you truly are. If you'd like to connect more deeply, come join us on Facebook on our page called Unbinding. It's a space for real conversation, reflection, and community. And if this episode resonated, please share it with someone who might need it. Like, subscribe, and comment below. We'd love to hear what's moving for you. Until next time, take care of your heart and keep unbinding.